Russian strikes Ukrainian city, kills 34, injured 100 others. Israeli airstrikes destroys last fully functional hospital in Gaza. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Renee Fong and you are watching World Today. According to Ukrainian authorities, at least 34 people have been killed and 117 injured, including 15 children, after a Russian attack on the center of Sumy. Two Iskander variant ballistic missiles struck at around 10:15 local time on Sunday, both hitting the area around Sumy State University and its Congress Center. Ukrainian authorities told that 20 buildings were damaged, including 4 education institutions, as well as cafes, shops, and 5 apartment buildings. 10 cars and trams were also hit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the strike hit right in the heart of the city on Palm Sunday. Zelensky called for a tough response from other nations. Moscow has not yet publicly commented on the attack. It has refused a U.S. proposed unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine. The strike came 2 days after U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff traveled to Russia to meet with President Vladimir Putin and push Trump's efforts to end the war. On a related note, Sumy has been under increasing pressure since Moscow pushed back many of Ukraine's troops from its Kursk region inside Russia across the border. An Israeli airstrike has destroyed part of Al Ahli Arab Hospital in the early hours of Sunday, the last fully functional hospital in Gaza City. Witnesses said the strike destroyed the intensive care and surgery departments of the hospital. The Israel Defense Forces claimed it targeted the hospital because it contained a command and control center used by Hamas. The attack comes as Gaza's already crippled healthcare system teeters on the brink of total collapse, with few medical alternatives available under the ongoing Israeli blockade. The Patriarchate of Jerusalem issued a strongly worded statement condemning the attack, which coincided with Palm Sunday. It confirmed that the hospital operated by the Anglican Church had been bombed despite Israeli forces issuing an evacuation order just 20 minutes before the strike. Meanwhile, the Gaza Ministry of Health reported on Sunday morning that 11 people had been killed and 111 injured over the previous 24 hours. Since the resumption of hostilities on 18th March, the death toll has climbed to 1,574, with 4,115 wounded. Former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol will face his first criminal trial today, just 10 days after being dismissed from office by the Constitutional Court. Yoon is charged with leading an attempted martial law plan in December last year and will appear as a defendant at Seoul Central District Court's Courtroom 417, where trials of past former presidents have been held. Under court files, Yoon is required to attend the hearing in person but will be allowed to enter via the underground parking to avoid public exposure. No photos or video footage of him in the courtroom will be allowed. The session will begin with a formal identity check followed by the prosecution's presentation of charges. Yoon's legal team is expected to deny all allegations consistent with its earlier statements during pre-trial proceedings. Key witnesses include 2 military officers who previously testified during Yoon's impeachment hearings that they received orders to forcibly remove lawmakers under the former president's martial law scenario. Yoon becomes the 5th former South Korean president to stand criminal trial. Ecuador's election authority declared incumbent Daniel Noboa the winner of the presidential runoff vote Sunday after the 37-year-old leader defeated his leftist rival by a bigger than expected margin. With 90% of the votes counted, Noboa led Luisa Gonzalez 56% to 44%, according to the official tally, prompting the National Election Council to call the race.
Esta jornada ha sido histórica. Esta victoria ha sido histórica también. Una victoria de más de 10 puntos, una victoria de más de 1 millón de votos donde no queda ninguna duda de quién es el ganador. Y eso ha sido a base de perseverancia, de lucha, de trabajo, de cada uno de los miembros de este equipo que busca ese nuevo Ecuador.
Incumbent President Daniel Noboa claimed a runaway victory in Ecuador's presidential election Sunday, with voters endorsing his iron fist approach to rampant cartel violence. Shocked by a weaker than expected showing, Gonzalez said she would call for a recount. Noboa narrowly won February's first round, but not by enough to avoid another duel against a Gonzalez, who was bidding to become Ecuador's first woman president. Noboa's win is likely to see him double down on hardline security policies and further nurture a budding bromance with US President Donald Trump. Members of Hong Kong's Democratic Party voted on Sunday to move forward with plans to dissolve the party as its leaders first proposed in February. The party is the latest Hong Kong civil society group to meet its end amid a years-long political crackdown, with scores of activists arrested, jailed or in exile.
Low Kin-hei, chair of the 30-year-old party, said the vote means that most of the party members are willing to allow the Central Committee to take steps to dissolve the party.
This is not the final decision that the party is dissolving, but in the coming few months, I hope there will be another general meeting that we actually will get that motion into debate and vote.
Low declined to comment on media reports that Beijing is exerting pressure on the group via middlemen to shut down the party before December's legislative elections. More than 90% of the 110 attendees supported the motion to let party leaders deal with the procedures required for dissolution. Vice Chair Mok Kin Shing said the liquidation of the party, which is registered as a Hong Kong company, may not be completed within the year. Low said in February the disbandment was due to Hong Kong's overall political environment. The party was not experiencing any financial stress at that time.
Afghanistan's High Commission for Addressing Returnees Problems said in a statement on Sunday, Pakistan expelled a total of 6,500 Afghan refugees on Saturday. The statement stated the refugees have evacuated to their homeland, Afghanistan, through the Torkham border crossing in eastern Nangarhar and the Spin Boldak border crossing in southern Kandahar province. The Pakistani government is set to deport 3 million Afghans to their home country this year. Reportedly, about 7 million Afghan refugees, most of whom are undocumented migrants, are currently living abroad, with most living in Afghanistan's neighboring Pakistan and Iran. The Afghan interim government has been repeatedly calling upon Afghan refugees to end living abroad as refugees and return home to contribute to the rebuilding of their war-torn homeland. The move is part of a larger repatriation drive of foreign citizens that began in November 2023, with over 900,000 Afghans expelled from Pakistan since. smartphones, computers and other electronics to come under separate tariffs. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said on Sunday in an interview with ABC's This Week that smartphones, computers and some other electronics will come under separate tariffs, along with semiconductors that may be imposed in a month or so.
We appreciate your time.
Well, remember, those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming. So you're going to see this week there'll be a register in the Federal Registry. There'll be a notice put out. That is different types of work. So we're going to do that. We did that in autos. The president's going to do it for pharmaceuticals, and he is going to do it for semiconductors. So all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focus type of tariff to make sure that those products get reshored.
U.S. President Donald Trump's administration late on Friday granted exclusions from steep tariffs on such products imported largely from China, providing a big break to tech firms like Apple that rely on imported products. The notice gave no explanation for the move, but the exclusion provides welcome relief to major technology firms such as Apple, Dell Technologies and many other importers. The action also excludes the specified electronics from Trump's 10% baseline tariffs on goods from most countries other than China, easing import costs for semiconductors from Taiwan and Apple iPhones produced in India. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz announced a new analysis on the impact of the recent changes in United States tariffs on the national economy will be presented at the National Geo-Economic Action Council NGCC meeting today. He said the meeting will be chaired by Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim. Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul said the tariffs involve new developments every day. Hence, it forces the ministry to carry out a new analysis immediately to understand the impact on the national economy. The new analysis on the tariff changes will be presented by the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, MITI. The minister added the government has outlined 5 key measures to mitigate the impact of these tariffs on Malaysia's economy and export sectors. On 7th April, Tengku Zafrul said the NGCC was activated to address the effects of US tariffs. The ASEAN Bloc agreement led by Malaysia in addressing the tariff crisis is the best and most effective approach. And according to economic analyst from Putra Business School, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Razman Abdul Latif, this unity should also be fully leveraged towards strengthening ASEAN economic integration.
Apa yang Malaysia boleh lakukan ialah mengambil kesempatan sebagai pengerusi ASEAN, mengambil kesempatan sepenuhnya untuk mula mengadakan perbincangan yang lebih serius di kalangan negara anggota untuk meningkatkan hubungan perdagangan antara negara anggota dengan lebih tinggi lagi dan juga mewujudkan satu suara ASEAN secara kolektif untuk menjalin hubungan perdagangan dengan rantau lain dengan lebih efektif.
Professor Ahmad Razman added that commitment to an open multilateral trading system is a strategic advantage for ASEAN, including Malaysia, in the long term. This strategy has the potential to ensure continuity and competitiveness, especially amid rising trade tensions. Efforts to strengthen the domestic economy must also be intensified to ensure the country's growth engine remains vibrant and acts as a buffer against external uncertainties. Singapore on Monday downgraded its economic growth forecast for this year as the trade-dependent nation braces for the effects of sweeping US tariffs and the US-China trade war. Although President Donald Trump imposed the baseline 10% tariffs on Singapore, the city-state is vulnerable to a global economic slowdown because of its heavy reliance on international trade. The Ministry of Trade and Industry (MTI) stated preliminary estimates show that the economy grew 3.8% year-on-year in the first quarter, slower than the previous quarter's 5.0%. However, it said economic growth for this year was now expected to come in at 0.0 to 2.0%, compared with its previous forecast of 1.0 to 3.0%. The ministry added the sweeping tariffs and the ongoing trade war between the US and China are expected to weigh significantly on global trade and global economic growth. In a separate move, the Central Bank Monetary Authority of Singapore eased monetary policy for the second time in a row to help deal with the effects of the sweeping US tariffs. The body said it would reduce the rate of appreciation of its policy band known as the Singapore dollar nominal effective exchange rate as it lowered core inflation projections due to the expected weaker economic outlook. The United States and Saudi Arabia will sign a preliminary agreement to cooperate over the kingdom's ambitions to develop a civil nuclear industry. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, who had met with Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdul Aziz bin Salman earlier on Sunday, said Riyadh and Washington were on a pathway to reaching an agreement to work together to develop a Saudi civil nuclear program.
So Saudi Arabia has resources here, mineral resources, including uranium, and it has a desire to expand even further its energy production via commercial nuclear power. The technology for commercial nuclear power was developed in the United States.
Wright, on his first visit to the kingdom as secretary as part of a tour of energy-producing Gulf states, said further details over a memorandum detailing the energy cooperation between Riyadh and Washington would come later this year. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, is seeking to generate substantial renewable energy and reduce emissions under the Crown Prince's ambitious Vision 2030 reform plan. Powerful winds brought by a sweeping cold front have battered many parts of China since Friday evening, prompting widespread weather warnings and emergency response measures. China's Meteorological Authority renewed its orange alert for strong gales on Sunday morning. In Laiyuan County, northern Hebei province, damages to greenhouses power lines were reported. Emergency crews responded quickly and power was restored within hours. In response to the severe weather, Laiyuan County also carried out inspections targeting vulnerable groups, including elderly residents living alone, to identify potential risks and relocated hundreds to safer accommodations. Meanwhile, in Zhuzhou, central China's Hunan province, strong winds tore off the roof of a house, leaving one person trapped. Firefighters rushed to the scene after receiving the alerts and quickly lifted the debris, moving the victim to safety. In Qingdao, East China's Shandong province, operations at several tourist attractions were suspended during the weekend due to strong winds. The city's fisheries departments deployed dedicated teams to patrol anchored fishing vessels and assist fishermen with safety inspections. All fishing boats were docked to shelter from the winds, and staff at offshore aquaculture sites were evacuated. At least one person died after a small plane carrying 6 people crashed on Saturday afternoon about 80 kilometers south of New York state capital, Albany. The Mitsubishi MU-2B went down in a muddy field at 12:15 p.m. local time in Copiague, New York, near the Massachusetts state line, and the plane was bound for the Columbia County Airport in Hudson. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, confirmed on Sunday that 6 people were removed from the scene. Earlier in the day, the Federal Aviation Administration and police said at least one person died after the crash. Todd Inman, a member of the NTSB who briefed the media, said they had recovered a video of the actual crash that showed that the aircraft was intact and crashed at a high rate of descent into the ground.
The video, as we've seen just in the last hour, we were able to retain a higher quality version, appears to show that the aircraft was intact and crashed at a high rate of descent into the ground.
During the approach at Columbia County Airport, the pilot reported a missed approach. He requested vectors for another approach, and as he is being vectored, the radar indicated a low altitude alert. The ATC controller attempted to relay this low altitude alert to the pilot and also tried to contact him 3 additional times. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. There was no response from the pilot, and there was no distress call.
Coming up in sports, Aaron Chia and So Yik wins maiden BAC title. Stay tuned. Starting off our sports segment this afternoon, national men's doubles pair Aaron Chia and So Yik have finally won their first ever Badminton Asian Championship title after beating Chen Boyang and Liu Yi of China on Sunday. The 6 seeds were unfazed by the strong home crowd as they beat the unseeded Chinese pair 21-19, 21-17 at the Ningbo Olympic Sports Centre Gymnasium, earning them the distinction of being the first Malaysian pair to win the BAC since Chong Tan Fook and Lee Wan Wah in 2007.
The straight game win belied the tough fight the Malaysian pair faced as the Chinese overcame a 0-3 lead in the first game to be draw level at 15-15 before the Malaysians closed them down by winning 21-19. The Malaysians did not have a good start in the second game, trailing 9-11 before they surged to retake command at 19-15 and clinched the title with a powerful smash by Aaron, ending the game 21-17. Aaron Wuyik's BAC win is a far cry from their last final in the 2022 edition in Muntinlupa, the Philippines, where they lost to Indonesia's Pramudia Kusuma and Jeremiah Rambitan, and is a culmination of their flawless run as they won without dropping a single game throughout the entire tournament. Their wins include a stunning 21-12, 21-14 semi-final victory over second seeds and home favourites Liang Wei King and Wang Chang on Saturday.
Liverpool are within touching distance of the Premier League title after Virgil van Dijk sealed a dramatic 2-1 win over West Ham. Arne Slot's side are 13 points clear of second place Arsenal with 6 games left.
Mohamed Salah set a new Premier League record with his 45th goal or assist of the campaign, the most ever in a 38-game season, when he teed up Luis Diaz to open their scoring on 18 minutes. Alisson twice denied Mohamed Kudus and saved a one-on-one from Jared Bowen, but was beaten by his own man 4 minutes from time. Virgil van Dijk made a hash of clearing Aaron Wan and Bissaka's cross, deflecting it into his own net off Robertson. Reds captain Van Dijk made amends 3 minutes later, rising to head in Alexis McAllister corner as Liverpool closed in just a second league title since 1990. The Reds can be crowned champions on 20th of April if they win at Leicester and Arsenal lose at Ipswich.
On to F1 News. McLaren's Oscar Piastri celebrated his 50th race with a pole-to-flag win in Bahrain on Sunday that sent him second overall and 3 points behind championship-leading teammate Lando Norris. The Australian also became the season's first repeat winner in 4 races and ended reigning champions McLaren's long wait for victory at their Bahraini owner's home Shakir circuit.
Norris finished third after lining up 6 on the grid and then having to fight back from a 5-second penalty for a jump start under the floodlights. Mercedes' George Russell held off his fellow Briton for second in a tense battle over the closing laps, but faced a steward's inquiry for allegedly using the drag reduction system outside the defined zone. Norris now has 77 points to Piastri's 74, with McLaren on 151 in the constructors' standings and Mercedes second on 93. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were 4th and 5th, with the Italian team's former boss Luca Di Montezemolo, the guest of honour, waving the checkered flag.
In MotoGP, Marc Marquez survived a first-lap collision with his brother Alex to win in Qatar on Sunday for a 7th victory in 8 races this season. Marc, who had taken his 4th straight pole with a lap record as well as a 4th sprint victory on Saturday, won at the Lusail International Circuit for the first time since 2014.
Marc had another perfect start off the line to take the lead into turn 1, but contact with Gresini Racing's Alex led to damage on the back of Marc's bike, and Morbidelli, who had started 4th on the grid, capitalized to surge into the lead. Alex did not fare any better, and the Spaniard was involved in another collision, this time with VR46 Racing's Fabio Di Gianantonio, which saw both riders lose positions. He was given long lap penalty that dropped him down to 12th, putting an end to any hopes of a podium finish. Bagnaia and Marc then swapped positions while battling for second, using each other's slipstream to overtake, while Vinales on the Red Bull KTM also moved up to 3rd. However, Marc was clearly struggling without one fin and another flapping loosely in the wind as Vinales outbraked the 6-times champion at turn 1 to take second place. Marc finally regained the lead for the first time since lap 1 when Vinales ran wide and allowed his compatriot to move up a place with 7 laps left. Victory moved Marc up to 123 points at the top of the riders' standings, 17 points ahead of Alex, while Bagnaia is 3rd on 97 points.
Carlos Alcaraz made the best possible start to his preparations for the defence of his French Open title, burning past the Italian Lorenzo Musetti in 3 sets on Sunday to win his first Monte Carlo Masters. The 21-year-old Spaniard, already a 4-time Grand Slam winner, dropped the opening set, but came back hard to take the next 2 at the cost of a single game as he cleaned up 3-6, 6-1, 6-0, albeit helped by a limping Musetti.
Alcaraz chose not to expand on his difficulties, but they may be eased partly by this win, which would lift him up to number 2 in the world rankings, ahead of Alexander Zverev, but still behind the suspended Jannik Sinner. However, this was no easy win in chilly conditions against a man playing in his first Masters 1000 final after taking down 2 top 10 players, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Alex de Minaur, to get there. Musetti dropped his opening service, but broke back straight away and took the fight to Alcaraz, who, in spite of the odd blissful winner, appeared at odds with his game, making 6 enforced errors. The Spaniard bounced back, however, lifting his game as he galloped through the second set, 6-1. That trend continued as Musetti began to have problems with his right leg, receiving treatment when he was 0-3 in the decider. It marks a 6th Masters title for Alcaraz and is his most prestigious title since winning Wimbledon last year. It was also his first win on clay since winning the French Open last season, although in mitigation he only had 1 tournament after that when he missed out on gold at the Paris Olympics.
That's it from us this afternoon. In a top story, Russian missile strike kills 34 in Ukraine, Sumi. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. for more news on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Or you can always catch us live on RTM Click's website and mobile app. Till then, I'm Renee Fong. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Goodbye. Thanks for watching and have a pleasant afternoon.